17 words. So with them on, I can see some stuff.
Glasses or no glasses?
I don't know. Both ways now.
They were so beautiful.
Okay, cool. Okay, thanks, Hales.
I think we've got a few people online.
Yeah, we have 10.
Cool. Is anybody here not an agent?
Steve's not.
Hey, there he
Well,
is.
and
Cool.
Jayla, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, Steve
Different,
was my
yeah.
manager.
yeah, very
And I
cool. I
said,
think we met at
Different life.
Yeah,
Yeah, what life was that? Oh my gosh, it was a long time ago.
that's awesome. What are you doing now? Are you Brooktown?
Yeah, so I operate eight of those locations and started doing this 2 years ago now, so.
Very cool. That's awesome. I like it. Sweet. Cool. This is gonna be geared towards, how many, we've got a few, I know I saw them online. Cool. So this is gonna be geared towards, there's gonna be a lot in this geared towards agents. It will apply to non-agents as well, so there will be value, just FYI. So I don't know.
I have to compensate.
Yeah. Also, I just got glasses on Tuesday and I'm trying to adjust. So if I look drunk, I'm not. I promise, but I'm kind of woozy.
So he says,
Yeah,
it is Friday.
it is Friday. Yeah, it's afternoon. So.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and get started. So fun, just disclaimers, right? We're not attorneys, we're not CPAs, so we don't have advice on that. We do not have it all figured out and know the absolute best advice for every scenario. We did not invent or develop any of this content. Majority has come from classes taught by KWI, such as the Millionaire Real Estate Investor, Quantum League, KW Wealth, etc. You know, always your fun disclosures that we have to say.
Yep. I think we also have to say, don't call people that are on the do not
Call list, yeah.
as well, probably.
Yeah. Add that in there. Good thing it's recorded. Okay, so this is one of my favorite quotes by Gary Keller. It says, you can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. We overestimate what we can do in 2 years and underestimate what we can do in 5 years. And from our background of what we've done in real estate investing, I think that's kind of shown what you can overestimate and underestimate.
Mhm.
So we're going to start off with a fun exercise. So if you have, does everybody have a pen or paper available? We'll get some pens. I think there's some pens over there.
Okay.
We're gonna do a fun exercise for everybody, and even if you're online. This puts everything into perspective of where we're at and what we want to do.
How many
So-
pens do we need real quick? Sorry, anybody need a pen? No, everybody.
Okay, so the first line, you're going to fill out, what is your current age? You'll put that number in the top line, just on a piece of paper of what you have. None of this was on a worksheet, it was more just on the backside probably. Once you filled in your current age, you're gonna take 90 minus your current age, because the current average life expectancy is 90.
And I think that's actually more. The way they explained it is 90 is over the average life expectancy. So we're giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt here that we're actually gonna live longer than the average.
That's
And give us a few more days.
Okay, so then once we've taken 90 minus our current age, we have our N number right here. We're gonna move that N number over to however many years that is. So for me, I'm 30, so my number would be 60, I would put in this box. I'm gonna times that by 365. And then that is going to give us our total or potential remaining days on Earth.
We'll take a second to do that math, and we're gonna do it too. What is ours?
21,900.
21,900 days left on Earth? Okay. we will
Potentially.
Second, potential,
Potential.
assuming that we live longer than the average person. Anybody have less than 21,900? Okay,
Is everyone old?
anybody?
I'm like, you suck for even asking that.
I mean, did you just say how many old people do we have in here?
No, that's not what I said. I asked what I asked. Anybody have less than 15,000 days? Okay, we all have more than 15,000 days left on Earth. Okay, very good. So kind of a fun exercise with that. The average American spends 10 days on the beach a year. So if we have 10 days per year, how many days on the beach do we have left? Anybody want to do that math? Somebody did.
470.
How many?
I have 470.
Okay, so of those 10 days on the beach, a year, the average American gets in the water twice. How many more times are you getting into the ocean?
94.
94 times? Okay, cool. How many Taco Tuesdays do we have left? You want to figure that out? If we have
Really important.
21 divided, 21/9 divided, how many is it? So how many of your days divided by 7?
1,404.
You have 1,404
Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesdays left. Okay, cool. Everybody got that? How many, if your parents are gonna live to 90 years old, how many days with your parents do you have left?
22. 22 years.
Okay, how many days is that?
8,000.
How about with your kids? If you're gonna make it to 90, how many days with your kids do you have left?
17,155.
Okay,
Here, you are on the map. I love it. Thank you.
so 17,000, you said? Okay, so if you have 17,000 days with your kids left, how many days realistically a week are you gonna see them?
Quality see them or?
Quality see them, quality time. I
Not
mean, I
enough.
think the average is 1 or 2, depending on how old your kids are, obviously, right? Quality time, hours spent, 2 days a week,
Not enough.
right? How many days is that?
Not enough.
Hmm.
That's the
Okay.
sad part, not enough.
How many of those days are we gonna waste from now on?
All of them, probably.
You're gonna waste all of them?
No, I mean, reality is.
Okay, I
More than we
figured we were
want.
going the other way there.
More than we
I
want.
figured we were going the other way there. Okay. This exercise hit me really,
Do
really
it.
hard.
I haven't met your kids, but.
I guess it depends on your kids if you like them. This exercise hit me hard. That's one of those things that we have our lunch day on Thursdays. How many lunches do we have left together? How many days do we have left with our parents, depending on how old your parents are? And once you see how many days you really have left, for me anyway, I know that hit us pretty hard of, let's not waste these days. We don't have anything, we don't have anything after those days are over with. And how can we turn around and buy ourselves more time with our parents or with our kids or with our lunches or days tipping our toes in the ocean when we're at the beach. So I think this is a great exercise to get started and a great reminder for us to understand just how much time we really have left. And at 21,900 days sure does seem like a lot. But when you look at how those hours are spent, we don't have a whole lot of time, no matter how old you are. So it's a cool way to get started.
Which poses the question at the bottom, what am I doing this week that actually matters?
Yep. What can we do to move ourselves forward?
So we want to know why everyone's here. What brought you to today's workshop? What interests you in starting to learn about real estate or continue your real estate investing career? But what would you like to get out of today? Because we could talk for hours and does it really matter? Is it valuable?
And to give you an idea of why what our thought process is, and if anybody's online, add comments in or however that works. Our idea, like we were talking about, is kind of geared toward agents, and then we decided to open it up to everybody as well, which we'll communicate that probably a little bit better next time. But we want to know what your mindset is and kind of a weird time in real estate. What struggles are we having, or what do we want to learn about, whether it's you yourself investing or helping clients. And a byproduct of understanding investing for yourself is going to be able to help your clients better, obviously. But like you said, what topics come up in your brain when you hear real estate investing, and what questions do you have?
What are your numbers that get you to making the contract happen?
Okay, cool. Anybody else?
Is anybody in here just wanting to learn so they can buy their first one?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Okay,
So it's funny that you guys are doing this today, and then Mike at the team meeting gave somewhat of his testimony, I guess, of just divorced and bankrupt and
What a cool story for him to share. How cool
It
was
was-
that of him to share with all of us.
so
It's incredible.
in 2008, I was pregnant with my 5th baby and I lost my husband in a motorcycle accident. So I've been a stay-at-home mom for 24 years. So when he gave that and said the same quote from Gary Keller, it like hit me like a ton of bricks. And even just, the days on earth. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. Let's make the best of what we have, the most of where we're at.
Yeah.
And so I think to learn that and to figure that out is priceless.
Absolutely, that's awesome. Yeah, I thought it was super cool of him to share and super vulnerable,
Oh my
just
gosh.
what you just said.
But it hit so many of us.
Yeah.
We've all been in those places where we're just like, what now? And then with Gary Keller's quote, and even you guys restating that quote, teach us how to make the best of where we're at and go the farthest.
Life happens, and how do
It
you make sure
does.
that you have your control in it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have anything that is on topic? Yep.
Steve?
Yeah, I got a few. So I think where I have kind of hit a wall right now is low inventory and creative ways to locate more houses. Next steps and probably gonna scale what I currently have over the next 12 to 18 months. And I think another thing that I struggle with right now is finding different financing options. It's hard to pencil numbers in right now with what we're getting for rent and where mortgages are landing.
A lot of uncertainty with both of those things.
Yeah.
How many doors do you have now, Steve?
I have 15 long-term, a short-term down in Branson. And then I'm doing like 1 to 2 flips every 6 weeks.
Awesome. Are you doing all the work yourself?
No.
Okay,
I've done 0 of the work myself.
that's the best way. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Who in here owns an investment property? At least one? Okay, cool. We've got a good mix of both then.
That's
awesome. Okay, cool. Anybody else have any topics or things that are on their brains right now? Okay, perfect.
So what we're going to do
Yeah.
today is we have some slides that are more informational. So if you're in the process of learning of like, where do I even get started? Let's talk about that. And then we actually have a portion where it's workshop that kind of involves the spreadsheets, and then it will kind of show how we calculated one of our deals and what that looked like and how those numbers worked out. And then we'll add in financing option scalability, low inventory, and locating of what we're doing as well. So perfect. And if you guys have any questions along the way, or even if any of you on chat, if you have anything, just put it in the thing or speak up, do whatever. Well, we want to make sure we answer everybody.
Cool.
Okay, ready?
I'm ready if you're ready.
Okay, so do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I'll talk about this one. So everybody here, especially Keller Williams people, we hear about what is finding your why in order to find your motivation, right? So why are we doing what we're doing? And why are we waking up in the morning and going to do the things that we don't necessarily want to do? Our why, and I don't know, it probably took us a year and a half to figure this out. Our why that we've been able to define so far is so that we never have to say no to an opportunity or an experience with those that mean the most to us. Where we live in a world where we have to have money in order to have opportunities and experiences, right? Disney World's not free. So what can that money do for us? We might not have a clear vision of what it is, what we want to be doing in 20 years. We might not know what vacations that we want to take or what side-by-side or boats we want to buy. Or whatever it might be. However, we know that we don't want to have to say no to an opportunity that we want to have or an experience that we want to have with our family and close friends. So that's, I think, since we've had clarity on that, I know before that, for me, it was my why was so I can get to the golf course by 2 o'clock every day and be duck hunting in the wintertime. Having something that's bigger than that and bigger than myself and being able to share that with my wife and my family has led to all the clarity to understand why it is that I get up and do the things that I don't want to necessarily do. I don't do them perfectly. Would you agree with that?
Don't put me on the spot.
Okay, got it. But we're moving forward and we're growing. So
And when we say opportunity experience, it's what life changes come our way, right? So what happens if we have to be the ones to take care of our parents? How do we make sure that we have enough money to do that? If we had an investment opportunity that popped up, how do we make sure that we could say yes to that? Because that could change our lives or any of those things. And it's not necessarily the glamorous experiences or the opportunities. It's those so we can be with those that matter most to us in that time and not have to choose. So a little bit about our investing journey, and it's a little tiny. So I purchased my first home as my primary residence in 2015 as an FHA loan and was later able to refinance it. And then Trey purchased his first home in 2016. So we haven't been homeowners that long individually within it. But 2021 is when we really started our investing journey. So for me personally, I was bugging Zach Riggs or any other investor in our office and picking his brain for honestly 2 years. It came to the point where he said, Rachel, if you don't act upon what I'm telling you or giving you advice on, I'm going to stop giving you advice on it. And I said, fair, I get it. I'm wasting your time at this point. And so Trey and I had talked of like, okay, how are we going to do this and when are we going to do it? And at that point, I remember Jim Bolin walking down the hallway and he literally was on the phone with the client saying, oh, you want to sell your duplex? And then my ears perked up. And that came from being able to have our homes and refinance those and have the funds to do that. So in 2021, we purchased the first duplex, purchased a total of 12 doors, refinanced both of our personal residents to get better interest rates on that, and then did a cash out refi to have that cash then go buy those properties. And that's how we were able to gain the capital on that side of it. And then we purchased our first home together and started what we thought 4-month renovation that turned into 10 months. So that was fun during in the middle of price spikes and lumber and wire and all of that. Into 2022, where we sold 3 of our doors. In that time, we had a failed 1031 exchange, which we thought we were on it, and nope, we failed it. Purchased 4 additional doors. We then had the opportunity. So when we say yes to the opportunities, my sister and myself and Trey and her husband, we had the opportunity to buy a duplex in my parents' name, and we are going to utilize the step-up basis when they pass. So again, being able to have those opportunities, and what a step-up basis means is they bought it in their names, but when they pass, our family, my sister and I specifically, will inherit the property and we can do whatever we want without having to pay taxes on it. So it's a way around that to help build their wealth while they're retired and having some cash flow, but they're able to use that to have that in the future for us. Finished the home refinance, and then so far in 2023, we purchased 3 additional doors right now, 2 under contract. And then so at that point, once we close on those, we'll be at 22 doors for that.
Very good. And when we talk about refinancing, and this is really getting into it and kind of going to find the cash to start. What we're able to do, what anybody's able to do, is you have more than 20% equity in your home at its market value. You go and do a normal refinance on it like most people would. You get a new interest rate, you get a new appraisal and all that stuff. And any excess equity over that 20%, your 20% down payment, you're able to pull out in cash. So obviously it will make your monthly payment a little bit higher because you have less equity in the deal. But what it does is that is tax-free money that you can go pull out and do whatever it is that you want to do with it. The con to that, I guess, is that you're going to pay interest on that money through your home loan. However, what our plan was for, I guess, all 3 of the personal residences, is let's go pull all of that cash out. And by doing the renovations on our personal home now, we were able to increase the property value significantly enough that we're able to pull out a big chunk of change to go put towards real estate that are rental properties that are going to cash flow for us. So what we're doing is we're paying the bank a little bit more in interest, but we're able to create more cash by pulling all of that money out and then investing it into something else. So anybody that hasn't refinanced or didn't pull cash out of a refinance, that's one of the best options because it's truly tax-free. You have to pay no taxes on that money. You go immediately put it into something.
Which at that time, obviously, interest rates were a little bit better. The only downside when we did ours was that when we bought our home and by the time it actually got done, because the remodel took so long, our interest rate jumped in like 2.5%. So downside with that.
Yep.
So,
Go contract.
Yep. So today we'll cover possibilities, power of leverage, and proven systems.
Yep.
So there are 3 personal myths when it comes to investing. And so first, it's I don't need to be an investor. My job will take care of my financial wealth. And we will go into the cash flow quadrants of why that is the myth. And then it says, you do need to be an investor. Your job is not your financial wealth. Your job is your job. Second one is I don't want or need to be financially wealthy. I'm happy with what I have. The actual truth is you need to open your eyes. You don't need and want to be financially wealthy. And I think depending on, or sorry, you do, sorry. And how you were brought up or raised, conversations of what financially wealthy means may mean a lot to everybody else. And I think that's where you have the opportunity to find that for yourself.
That's a tough one for me because I'm very anti-authoritarian. And if somebody says you do need to do something, I immediately said, no, I do not. That one's a tough one. And I think a cool thing here is that means different things for everybody, just like you talked about being brought up. Financially wealthy means different things to different people. And there's not a right or wrong there. It's all about what's going to make you feel free. And there's going to be people that need very, very minimal income to feel free. And so the cool part about it is you get to understand what is it for you that sets you free. And once you understand that, then you can make the plan moving forward.
Third myth, it doesn't matter if I want or need it, I just can't do it. The truth is you can't predict what you can or can't do until you try. So then we have 5 investing myths. Do you want to go over this?
Yeah, investing is complicated. Truth, it absolutely is. Oh, never mind. Investing is only as complicated as you make it. Complicated is, if something's complicated, it's because you have a lack of clarity. Once you understand it, it becomes less complicated. Once you do it, then you really have an understanding for it and can master it. The best investments require knowledge most people don't have. Truth, your best investments will always be in areas you can or already understand. Real estate is a great example. We are right here. We have one of the most incredible opportunities as far as investing goes, being this close to the world of real estate. Investing is risky. I'll lose money. Investing by definition is not risky. It is not risky. By going through the proper steps and putting the models into place, that we're not risking. We know the numbers and we know the facts, so we can move forward from there. Successful investors are able to time the market.
My favorite one.
Okay, and successful investing, the timing finds you. That's a good one. Guys, real estate has never depreciated more than 5 years in a row. If we are planning on truly investing for the long term, if you look at any 30-year period in the history of real estate, you're not going to lose money unless you just burn the house down, I guess. But then that's what insurance is for. All the good investments are taken. I shouldn't have said that, should I?
Yeah.
Every market has its share of good investments. Agreed. It's about finding the deals and making the numbers work. If the numbers work, it's a good investment. If they don't work, it's not. That's what makes it very black and white. It's either a yes or a no.
So cash flow quadrants, how many of you have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki? So this is one of my favorite graphics out of that book, and it explains the whole book of E, which is you have a job, you're an employee. S, you own a job, you're self-employed. B, you are a business owner. You can own a system and people work for you. And I is money works for you, and that's where the investor mindset is at. So for those that are real estate agents, you own a job, you are self-employed. Business owner, you own a system and people work for you. And I, the hardest part is going from E to where you have a job to actually becoming an investor. And I think it's truly a balance of both of I have a job as being a market center employee, so I'm an E here, and yet I can utilize each of these quadrants as well. Doesn't have to be a one size fits all.
And I think the biggest confusion here is between the S and B, meaning a self-employed and a business owner. And I can't remember who it was that talked about this, but we are self-employed as real estate agents. And we're a business owner. You can have a job and be a business owner both, but if you are not working, you are not making money, correct? So then how are we going to continue to bring money in the future if we want to stop working? And I think that's the biggest thing between S and B is how do you become a business owner where you have systems that can work for you while you don't necessarily have to be there to create the cash to then invest.
The path of money. So this is out of Gary Keller's Quantum Leap, where there's 2 kinds of capital, the human capital where you work for your money and the capital assets where your money works for you. So when we look through the path of money, you have either 2 of those that go to cash flow, and you have 4 choices for your cash flow: spend, donate, save, or invest. And then if you decide to invest that money, you can either lend your money or you can own something from it. And there's 2 bases of the positions of it. It's either passive or active. Passive is where when you're lending, it's money market, CDs, bond, T-bills. Where you own on the passive side is stocks, real estate investments, and mutual funds. And then when you go to active, it's owner financing, private lending, which if you have the money and the cash, you can, or you can own, which is businesses and real estate, where you control it more. And the passive on the stocks is it controls you. You just put your money in there and hope that it works and it grows and it increases. And then with those returns, you take it back and you bring it back into the capital assets where you put it back into where your money works for you. So when you're looking at your monthly budgets or items like that, it's what are you spending? What are you saving? What are you donating? And then what can you use that money to take and invest into it? And do you want it to be active or passive? So the power of leverage, this was a graphic out of the MREI. Where it's built, it says financial wealth is built on capital and cash flow. So you have capital, cash flow, cash, and consumption. But whenever you have it down here and you work for your money, none of this is appreciating or it's stacking on top of it. It's called shadow wealth. And then it's built on the consumption of it. And so when you have the capital, it builds up. When you have the consumption, it takes it and dwindles it down. You want to talk about power of leverage? Or got it?
Yeah,
Okay.
will you go through, go through and put them all up there, so I know what I'm doing. Okay, so this is equity, and most of you guys who own property or have heard about owning property understand this, but what we're talking about here is when we start out and we buy something, we have a massive amount of debt on it, right, which is the red. And as we pay it down, and this, if we're talking about this, this can be personal residence or this can be rental property. Whether it's you paying it down or the tenant's paying it down, your debt will decrease as we go on, right? And I think it's by year 22 is the year that it's half paid off. And then 30 years, obviously, it's fully paid off if we're doing a normal mortgage. This is, our investment stays the same in it, but you can see how much the equity grows and how much wealth that's gonna allow us to accumulate over those next 30 years.
So then as we go into cash flow, it's the same kind of analogy to where in the initial numbers, your cash flow may be lower because you still have debt service, potentially vacancy and expenses adding into that. But then over time, as your renters are paying down, then your cash flow should be increasing, debt service decreasing, vacancy and expenses to where you're already at the point where you've paid off all your debt and it's just truly cash flow and then your vacancy and expenses at the top of that.
And I think we've all been able to see how this has changed just over the past 6 years. I know whenever I bought my house, I bought it for $100,000 in 2016. And at that point in time, I was gonna be thrilled to death with $750 a month in rent. We probably should have it higher, but right now we're getting 1,250. And so it's almost doubled in essentially, what is that, 8 years? Yeah. And that's it, everything else is inflated highly. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but if you can imagine what it's gonna be in 30 years from now, even if we have the typical 5% appreciation on everything. So that cash flow is gonna go way up.
And
as time
when
goes
we
on.
ask like, why do people invest in real estate? Top 5 are accessibility to where majority of everybody can buy a home. There's great tax advantages, whether it's through cost segregation or you're able to expense a lot of your expenses you have coming off. It's leverageable. You get appreciation and cash flow. Andrew Carnegie famously said that 90% of millionaires got their wealth by investing in real estate.
I want to talk about the accessibility because we touched on this earlier. Most of us in this room, that this is our profession. Guys, we have an opportunity here that we are the first people that see the deals. And I'm sure you know plenty of realtors to communicate with, and we'll get into that as well, but it's all about networking. So we're not gonna beat you over the head with lead gen, but it's lead gen for the deals if that's what we're after and that's what we're trying to find. We are so close to it because how many agents do we have in our office?
438.
438 people in our office in our area that has first picks of the deals or first knowledge of the deals, if you will. We're right here. So all you have to do is network with people and talk to people about it. And the deals, you will find deals out there that make sense for both you and the seller. And that's the biggest thing when a lot of people hear, well, the real estate agents have the first picks of the deals. we're not saying to go out and take advantage of people. And we're not saying that you've got to go out. We're not lying to anybody. We're not telling them false information. That's not what we're here to do. First and foremost, we're making win-win situations, right? And so if we give people their options and we talk to enough sellers and we say, hey, here's what you could sell it for if you go put this work into it. And this is our playbook with the sellers that are unrepresented and we talk to first. Our playbook is, hey, if you go put this work into it, here's what you will be able to sell it for on the market. If you don't want to put work into it, then you have two options. A, we can go list it and we can go through the process of putting it on the market, or we will buy it for this price. And it's this price because we've got to make money on it too. This is a business for us and we're doing this for our family. And you will be very, very surprised how many people say, we would rather just have the ease of the deal and we'd rather just get it done. So when we say we've got first pick of the deals, we're not saying we're taking advantage of people here. And I think that's why a lot of people don't get into this because they feel like they are without actually understanding what it is that we're truly doing. If somebody doesn't want to go put the effort into putting work into something, that's totally fine. We've had properties that we've sold that we didn't want to go put work into. And so we took a discount off of the price and sold it to somebody where they could make money as well. So you'll be very, very surprised with how many people actually are open to that idea. Again, we're creating win-win opportunities for people to where if they don't want to do the work and we do want to do the work, we're going to be paid for that. And we're going to make money off of it, but it's all about what they're doing. So that's the biggest thing with this is put yourself in positions where you have the accessibility and talk to the people that you need to talk to because the deals are out there for you to go take advantage of.
So dive into each of the units and why it's beneficial.
Single family, easiest to resell. Everybody has seen what appreciation has done on single family units, correct? Meaning residential properties. It has gone absolutely bonkers over the past 4 or 5 years. This is what the most people are after. A lot of people don't want to be real estate investors or manage properties, but they do need a place to live and they know that it's beneficial to own it. So we have the biggest group of people are looking to invest in their own personal property. So it's the easiest to sell. Typically surrounded by owner occupants, more appreciation, it's more sought after. Again, cons, there's only one unit to generate income. So if you don't have a tenant in that unit, you are making zero money.
And when we're talking about single family houses, there is different neighborhoods of how they classify them. So A class neighborhoods, B class, C class, and it's where people want to be. So for instance, depending certain types of Springfield may be more C class where you may get lower rent or different conditions of the homes compared to where we see higher appreciation on the east side, south side, and Kickapoo school district specifically, because everybody goes to school districts for homes. That's where you may see more appreciation. And so each of those, how they classify their homes is A, B, and C neighborhoods.
Yep.
I just said
I'm like,
Sweet.
he's not gonna say anything.
Sweet, I love it.
Nope, okay.
Yep.
Duplexes.
Oh, man.
Typically close to or in a single family neighborhood, you see that quite a bit. It's less risk than a fourplex, you're biting less off. You know, if you have 4 water heaters break, you have 4 HVACs, you have one whole big roof to replace. You're gonna have less money there, obviously. You have more cash flow than a single family home because you have 2 tenants. You have, the cons are lower appreciation, and it's usually surrounded by other, what does that say? That's
Rental
other
units.
rental units. So, you know, they're not gonna be in the super nice, you know, there's no duplexes in the terraces over off East Battlefield, right? However, why we say there's lower appreciation, these investment properties like a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, or big apartment complexes, who's buying those? Those are investors typically, right? We might have some homeowners come buy a duplex to rent out one side, but primarily it's going to be investors that are buying those. And if we are investors looking at a deal and buying something, are we concerned that the flowers are pretty? Or are we concerned that we really like the color of the walls? We're not emotionally attached to it, so it's all numbers. That's all that it is. It's all location. It's all factual black and white information. And so if rents are not increasing at the same level that, hello, what am I trying to say? Single family unit values are, then our appreciation is going to be less. Make sense?
But with duplexes and even up to 4 units, you can still get a residential loan for them. So if looking back, if I wish that I would have had somebody to tell me, if you're in college, buy a duplex. How do you buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex? And then that way you're able to have that under a residential loan where you could get a better interest rate and better terms and then use that. I wish I would have known that information. And so if you have clients that are willing to live in like a duplex or a triplex or quadplex, that would be the most beneficial thing to recommend for them if they're thinking about building their wealth and something that they'd come back and say thank you on. Mike made a good point at team meeting of if you're buying your first one, add a home warranty to it for a year. Add something in there to help kind of protect maybe some of those big ticket items you'd be a little bit more nervous about.
Yep.
One thing that we're thinking about doing with our duplexes is one side doing a long-term rental, but the other side doing midterm rental as well. So you get the increased cash flow of a midterm because people are going to pay higher pricing. And it's probably still gonna be cheaper than a hotel room, but you still have the consistent long-term income of one side. So if you had that opportunity, or you had a client looking for a duplex, that could be a suggestion for them. In the midterm, you could do it furnished or not, depending on what you want to do with that. But that is a strategy that we are starting to look at because we've had great success on our midterm so far. Fourplex.
Fourplex generates high cash flow, minimizes financial impact from vacancy. If we have one person that's not living there anymore, we still have 3 other sides that are gonna be paying the mortgage and paying all of our expenses. Economies of scale, I don't know what that means.
Units, one property.
Oh, yeah, okay. Cons, more upkeep, tenant damage, less appreciation, tenant conflict. So same thing here as you get into fourplexes, what?
We don't know anything about tenant conflicts on fourplexes.
Yeah, right. Less appreciation, again, it's all about numbers. It's black and white. And so it's gonna appreciate less because there's even less emotion than a duplex. More upkeep, more tenant damage. You have more tenants you have, the more tenant damage you're gonna have, the more space you have, the more areas that you're gonna have to upkeep. So kind of is what it is there.
And this kind of shows the economy of scale. So if we're looking at single family, small and medium multifamily, and then large multifamily and commercial is different price points of where you could expect to purchase these at. But the interesting thing I want to point out is, let's say you decide to give your units to property management. And how like a large multifamily, that's considered one unit there. And it's one location you have to drive by to check on 8 units at once versus having to drive to 12 different locations to check on all those. So it may take a little bit more to get there, and it's always an upgrade or a stepping up portion of it. But that is the ideal of like, if I could just drive to one location and check on all my properties, I'm spending less time in the car and having to look at it. I mean, when we have properties all over town, it's spending more time driving everywhere, and it could be more beneficial on the property management side.
Which I love because I get more car time with you.
Okay. So some of the questions may be, how do we calculate cash flow? And so if you want to take a picture of this for a reminder or just to keep, but essentially what it is your monthly rent minus your mortgage payment, minus what you'd pay on a monthly basis in taxes and insurance. Maintenance is about 10% that you always want to keep a hold of. And just that way, if you have any expenditures that come up, a vacancy percentage of if it does go vacant, are you keeping money aside to cover if you couldn't make those payments or someone's not making them for you? And then property management. And so that total equation should give you the cash flow. The mistake we made when we first started, when we were calculating this, we manage all of our properties ourselves, so that really didn't matter, but it was the vacancy and maintenance stuff that we did add into the formula to know truly how much the property was going to cash flow. And so whenever we had expenses come up and we didn't really budget for those, then it was extra money that was pulling into potentially what we were going to use to go buy out other properties, then putting that aside to keep for it.
Yep.
And so whenever we talk about cash flow, the other side of the equation is the cash on cash return. I'll let you talk about this because this is what you nerd out on.
Okay, cool. So cash on cash return, what this tells us is how does our investment compare to a stock market return essentially? So we think of a stock market return, we think of 8 to 10% generally. 10% is very good, I would say. So generally 8% is what I like to compare it to. How we're finding our cash on cash return or our ROI, return on investment, they're the same thing. We're going to take our purchase price plus our closing costs, and that's going to tell us exactly how much cash do we have to put into the property. We can also, you know, and this is assuming that we're buying a property that needs no work, so this is pretty conservative. However, if you needed to go in and do some paint or put a new roof on or whatever it was, you would add that in there as well to see how much of your own cash do you have in this investment. And that's gonna tell you that. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the the yearly cash flow, which is the monthly cash flow times 12, obviously. We're gonna take that yearly cash flow and we're gonna divide it by the cash that we have in our property. What that's gonna do is that's gonna give you a percentage, because the yearly cash flow more than likely is gonna be less than the cash that you have in the property. And that's gonna give us our cash on cash return. And again, we're gonna show you an example here in a second, but if we're looking at a stock market return, which is, we're gonna assume is gonna be 8%. Stock market takes no effort. You put your money in, it stays there. You have to do nothing and then it grows in value, right? So if we are gonna put our money into something that we have to work on, even if we're gonna have a property manager in place, it still takes up mind space, right? So even if it just takes up mind space, that's still something. So we're going to expect a better return than the stock market where we're not having to do anything. Make sense? Okay.
So as real estate agents, whenever you go out to a property, this should be your deal hierarchy. First is whenever someone's coming out and saying, hey, I have this house, it should always be, should I buy it?
Hierarchy means thought process.
Yes.
I had to ask.
So it should be, can I buy this? Can I buy it and hold it? Because this is our greatest advantage of being licensed agents. You're able to see that first. So if I can't buy it and hold it, could I potentially create value, flip it, and then sell it and make money off of it? If I can't do that, could I potentially wholesale it? Which I will say wholesaling sounds fun, but it also can get very wonky really quickly. So make sure you're up to date on what wholesale is. Essentially, it means I find the deal, I put it under contract, I'm gonna go find out somebody else to buy it, and then I'm gonna take my fee for my wholesaling fee. So I could say, hey, Trey, I found this property, and I'm buying it for 130, but I'll give it to you for 140. The number still makes sense for you, but I'm gonna make $10,000 just for finding it, essentially. What we've seen though, and it get really bad, is somebody gets the contract and then they run out of days to assign it to somebody else, and then they can't close on the property because they don't have the full funds to buy it. And then it's just this whole string of default and attorneys and legal fees and things like that. So just be very careful if you ever get in that thought process of wholesaling, but that is an option available. And then the last thing is, if I can't do the top three, can I list it? And that should always be the hierarchy as, how can I buy this property? And one of the really cool things that I was taught, and this is one of the things that Zach and Alex and whoever else I've talked to at KW, of all the people that are willing to share, is if you find the deal, you can always find the money. That's the biggest thing. And there's so many people that are here under our roof that do hard money lending, for example, that would be willing to go to them and say, okay, I found this deal. What would it have to take for you to do hard money lending with you? And they may charge a higher interest fee for it, but it's a way to get in a property on that side of it. So it's a thought of process when you're looking at it. So when we talk about our network of who do we need to have, when you're looking at you, there's 5 different things we need to consider. 1, who are our mentors? Who are our mentors and role models that are coaching us in our life in different aspects of it? 2, who is the person I determine wealth for? Who am I responsible for that if I don't go out and build my wealth, then I'm choosing to say no to them? 3, who are the people that are in my life on a personal basis? My spouse, kids, parents, siblings, etc. 4, who are my top 5 wealth determiners? So if I'm going out and showing every day, who are they determining wealth for me? And then within there, who are my allied resources? And we'll get into more of a circle on the professional side of it too, or who's in my circle that I can go to. So the first circle of your network circle is going to be your inner circle. It's going to be your consultants, partners, and mentors. So who are those people that you can go and consult with and say, hey, how do I get into real estate investing? How do I find a good deal? How do I know if it is a good deal or makes sense to purchase it? Who are those people in your life? The next one is your support circle. And this is a very important circle. So as you're thinking about if you have already rental properties or you're about to, who are the people I need to know in my life that I can help and call? So who are my contractors? Who are going to be my handyman people? Because I'm definitely not doing the work and I'm not handy. Who is my CPA? So that way they can help me be the best financially and strategize and get my LLCs in line. The other one is, who are my investors? So who are my agent resources and other investors that I can go to find those deals, to bring them in? Just like we work with our clients, our agents are our biggest partners. That's where a majority of our properties have been, is just networking with other real estate agents saying, hey, what do you have? What are you thinking about selling? What would be a price to sell some of those? Who is my lender? Who am I gonna go to? Is it gonna be one bank here locally? Is it gonna be a national bank? Can I get the best interest rate there? If I put all my properties there, you have a little bit of leverage there as you grow your portfolio. Who's my attorney in case something goes wrong that I can call and say, hey, help me get out of this? And then who's a property manager that can help manage my properties if I don't wanna deal with the headache or the noise involved in that? And I think depending on the property, there's a different level of noise that comes with it, of how many calls you may get or the type of tenants you may have. And I think we've been kind of fortunate, even though a lot of our tenants have been inherited tenants, meaning we bought the property and they've already been in there. The next one is your service circle. So these are gonna be all of your other ancillary people. So your title companies, landscapers, developers, financial planners, plumbers, roofers, anybody that you need to call if you ever had something pop up. So what we have been working on is creating like our own Angie's list. So if we had something wrong with our property, who are those people that we need to call and reach out to? So that way we always have their resources, or somebody within our world can know who we go to, who is our person that we call for that. And so then this is the whole circle together as your network. And the bottom line of it all is that you need more people, you need people more than they need you. And no one ever achieves their true maximum potential alone. And so I think this graph does a great understanding of, these are all the people we need to have in our world to help make sure everything runs. Anything on that? Good.
Yeah, no, it's
Okay.
the same thing. Your
Okay.
Network.
So let's talk
determines
about the
your
lessons
network,
we've
right?
learned.
Okay, dear gracious. Criteria first and foremost, and this is something that takes a little bit to figure out probably, and we're still figuring that out. I think, having an ideal property, you know, you can go and if you call somebody up and say, hey, do you have any good investments? They're gonna say, I don't know what that means. Cause they don't know what you're looking for, right? So
Good
if we can
deals.
be
Yeah,
good,
what are-
you
what
got
are
any
deals?
good
What are
deals?
good
Yeah, we
deals?
got a pack of 5 gum for $2.99 and it's normally $3.99. That's a good deal. Determine what you want, right? Determine what your
Your niche gonna be.
your niche is gonna be. What are your criteria for what you want to do right now? You know, we've been doing long-term, and we've worked into the midterm rentals, the furnished rentals. And that's what our bread and butter is. That's what we're good at. That's what we know really well. And there's enough deals out there for us to stick to that, and be successful. So a failed attempt at that was an A-frame cabin down in Lampe, Missouri, around Table Rock. That's about 450 square feet. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, that's 1,300 square feet in the middle of Springfield. There's a pretty decent need for that, right? There's a lot of people that want that. 450 square feet in Lampe, not a lot of people that really want that. Our thought was buy it and do an Airbnb out of it. As we talked about earlier.
Because we've heard
with-
people have done really well in the Airbnb
Yeah.
space, so we thought, let's try it, right? We know
Yeah.
people that are very successful in it, let's try it out.
Yeah.
And it didn't really work that well.
Yeah, and we heard a team meeting on Tuesday that there's a ton of people that have great success. Blake runs a really, really great one
Mhm.
out at the river. We didn't do a very good job, partially because we got denied our nightly rental application from Stone County whenever we put in for it.
Mhm.
While this was not all our fault, I think our intentions were good and we would have had a great plan in place, but something went awry and something that we couldn't expect.
Yep.
Happened. So our ideal property now is mid-level rentals, that we know we can rent out on a 12-month basis safely. If we can't do that, we're not interested. Now, taking that a step further, if it's in the right location and we can do a furnished rental, it's close to the hospitals, it's close to jobs, whatever it is, great. That's icing on the cake. That's bonus. That's awesome. But if we cannot rent it out on a 12-month lease and make money and make the numbers work for us, we're not doing it. We're not interested. There's enough deals out there for us to go and find that we can put our money there. And a conversation that we had last night actually is we only have a finite amount of cash in our bank account, right? It doesn't matter if you're the richest person in the world, you have a finite amount of cash. Put that cash in something that you know, understand, and like. has been the biggest thing for us to figure out.
And when we say that, it's not to say that you shouldn't do an Airbnb. And also, like, we went and we furnished it, we had it all ready and then got denied after we purchased it. And then it just sat there for almost a year,
Yep.
9,
No, yeah.
10 months probably at that
6
time,
months.
yeah. And so, but it just sat there and we were losing money on it and we ended up taking a loss when we had to sell it. Because now it wasn't at the price that we bought it for. I mean, we didn't take too much of a loss on it, but it's still a loss and it hurt. So whenever you're thinking about what are you wanting to invest in if you haven't, or even if you've already started investing, it's like the world is your oyster, and yet just stay really in your lane that you know and do well. Like if you know you can crank out midterm, long-term holds, do it. Just find them. You can go in and flip, houses every 6 weeks. Heck yeah. And you know that turnaround time. So I think sometimes, and just like on the real estate side or any of our jobs, it's like the successful part of it gets really boring, kind of like lead generation. And so then we're like, oh, let's go and do this. And then it's like, oh, that sucks. And then we're like, oh, if we stayed in that lane, it would just keep working well. So that was the first thing, is we didn't have a clear criteria of what we wanted.
The hard part about this too, and this is how it is in life, but the best learning lessons cost money. You're not gonna have a good learning lesson that doesn't cost you money. Well, you might, but the best ones cost money anyway. So that's a hard pill to swallow, because it's gonna cost you money in the meantime, but that was a great learning lesson for us.
Yep. Another one of the lessons we learned was waiting too long. So this was feeling like we needed to know all the answers, every single detail before we actually went out and started to invest. When actually it's kind of like a real estate deal. There's something new every single transaction that you may not know. You still have to call a broker and ask questions on. So if you're on the fence, then I would say, okay, what has to happen for me to take this first step? And for, if for me specifically, it was when Zach said, I'm going to stop pouring into you, I'm going to stop answering. I was like, oh, I don't want that, please stop. And then Trey and I finally had the conversation of like, okay, let's do it. Let's finally take the chance. And it's the getting ready to get ready aspect of it. And so if you ever feel like you still don't know it all, like, it's okay, where it's always a learning process. When we bought the first duplex, I thought I needed to go get welcome baskets and take to him and say, congratulations, I'm your new landlord. And Jim Boland was like, why would you even think that? Like, and so now it's not something, and I was like, I don't know, it's kind of fun. And then never thought about it since. So
If
things
you're
like that.
if you're an analyzer, partner with somebody who's not an analyzer,
Okay.
the fair.
Yep.
I kind of a hard lesson here for me was, I was 4 months in the business in 2016. And you guys know how much houses have appreciated since 2016. I had a guy, I went over on a listing appointment, ran comps, came back and said, hey, I think if you replace this $700 worth of carpet, leading into a bathroom, not in the bathroom, but leading into a bathroom, I think you sell this house for 140. And he said, oh, no, I just want to sell it to you for 100,000. I don't want to have to go do stuff. And I said, I don't do that. Sorry, I can't do that. And $130,000 house is now worth about 250 over there, or whatever it was. And he wanted to sell it for $100,000. Those deals are out there again, like we talked about earlier. So that's swallowing that pill of, oh my gosh, what did I just gave up 150 grand because I didn't understand the concept. So you guys taking the steps to be here and understand that is step number one. Just go do it. You guys know what real estate does appreciation wise over 30 years. Just go do it.
Just like when you talk to your clients of interest rates are never going to be in 2s and 3s again, and prices are never going to go down drastically, right? We're seeing this uptrending still appreciation of it. And so like if they bought a home in 2020, think how much already equity they would already have now. Same way with real estate investing.
Yep.
So we have to practice what we preach. Ugh.
Yep. Mindset around finding properties.
Yeah.
Feeling like we couldn't compete against the major investors in the market, not understanding that they are at a different stage level, et cetera, in their investing career. We're all at a different stage, and there is a lane for all of us. There is a duplex that you can go buy this year. There is a single family house that you can go buy this year. There is enough deals out there, again, coming from the mindset of abundance. There's enough out there for everyone. And we can go create what we want to create by understanding what we want. There's a lot of major investors in Springfield. Springfield is very saturated with investors, and there's still enough deals out there for us to go pick up base hits. And that's kind of the name of the game for us anyway, is I'm a baseball guy. So base hits win ball games. We don't have to go hit 10 home runs a game, but if we can go get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 base hits and string those together at the right time, we're gonna win a lot of baseball games.
And there's something so satisfying whenever you say you found this property and it's under contract and they go, where'd you find that at? And you're like, oh, you told me, like, oh, great job. And you're like, okay, great. I feel validated that I found it, right? There's always gonna be a different time. And the single family house I'm gonna buy that's gonna be 100,000 to some other major investors, it's not worth their time. It's not the return. They'd rather use their cash at a higher level to go buy like an apartment complex, where at this time you may not have the funds to do that. So you're at different levels and scales, and that was really hard for me to understand and wrap my brain around of like, it's the abundance part. There's always gonna be homes out there to go find, and it's where you're at a different portfolio. Or we could say, no, we actually don't want that because that doesn't fit our criteria now.
Yep.
The
Oh.
hardest lesson,
Do you want this one?
overextending yourself. So not having an investment plan that includes an emergency fund, personally, additional monies for items that could go wrong, a clear budget strategy, and knowing when to take a chill pill. So for me personally, when we started investing, it became very addicting, and it was like, oh, I want to do all of them. But then there became a part of, we were at a point where we got to the point that we could see financially that we were almost like, oh, we almost extended ourselves. We almost went one property too far to where we needed to digress from it. So whenever you're thinking about, this is one, personally, do you have enough money saved aside in an emergency fund? If you didn't work for 6 months, do you have enough money sitting there that you could use and support yourself? That's the biggest thing first and foremost. Whenever something goes wrong in a property, do you have enough money that you could fix that? Yes or no? And if you don't, then what does that need to look like? And a clear budget strategy of how many properties do we want to go out and buy? Well, if we're using only our money, there's only so much money that we can use. However, there are different financing terms of using a hard money lender and that means that somebody that has enough cash will lend it to you and you don't have to do the bank part of it. And you're just going to pay a higher interest rate for them. So there's that option too. Or there's the house hacking, there's other options, but if you don't have that, that's a very hard lesson to learn. And one of the things that I realized when we got to that point, it was a very stressful 2 or 3 months as we worked our way out of it. And it came down to, do we sell a property? And no one ever wants to downgrade in the units or the properties. But if that's what you have to do in order to have that peace of mind that your family's taken care of, or you're not going to lose your home or any of that, that's worth the sanity of it all. Because it happens more often than what you think. And it's a very terrible spot to be in.
And there's different investing strategies, there's different budget strategies, which is what we're gonna talk about here in a second. But everybody knows who Dave Ramsey is, right? Everybody heard of Dave Ramsey? Everybody heard of Grant Cardone? Okay, two polar opposite personalities, and two polar opposite strategies. Dave Ramsey says, pay for everything in cash, don't have any debt ever. So that we can have peace of mind. And I think one of Grant Cardone's mantra is stay broke. Don't ever have cash, because if you have cash, it's just sitting there not working for you. I don't think either one is 100% right. I think there's a happy medium. I know there is for us. And there is a huge price to pay for feeling secure and having and knowing that you're going to be taken care of.
Cool. And so then this kind of gives you an overview of how we've established what our investment map is. And so we went through 8 weeks to wealth, Blake went through it too. And so this is the brainchild that KWI kind of gave us of like, how do you go out and create this? And so this gives us an idea of what do we own? What is the E portion of that? And so it's the like our 401ks, our LLCs, and then all of our different properties. So the thing about the properties I want to talk about is sometimes you hear people that say, I have one LLC for every single property. Some people say I have one LLC for every individual property I have. It has its own LLC. And I think it's whatever is up to you and your investing strategy. The thing we've heard is if you've had like $1 million in that umbrella, then that's about when you need to go and get another LLC. Because as these properties appreciate and you're putting them on more and more, then there creates a higher liability within it. So we, after a certain time, we said, okay, great. We had 4 under this one. So then we're going to keep that under this LLC. We have 5 under this one. Let's keep it under this. One of them is for the parents on that side of it. And the other one, we have one that's for our flips. So it's something separate within it. And so we like to keep those things separated, but it's everybody's personal preference on how you want to structure it too. But we've heard about $1 million is what our attorney told us for that. So
It's all personal preference because it's all about liability.
So a couple of resources that are really good to know. Carl's Mortgage Calculator, it's an app you can download where you can put in what the sales price is, what your down payment is. It'll tell you your monthly payment. That's where you can enter in your insurance, mortgage. It kind of does all of the cash flows kind of stuff for you. Except for it doesn't calculate like rent, or excuse me,
It's all your expenses.
property management, all of that, but it kind of gives you a good snapshot of it. Rentometer, however you want to say it, that's a like $99 a year. You can go on for a subscription. You can type in the address of maybe a property you're looking at, put in how many beds, how many baths it is, what type of property, and it will tell you average market rents in that area. So if you're wondering how much can I charge for a property by putting in that address, it will say this is kind of what it would be, median, high, low, average, and so it kind of gives you an idea. Not saying it's 100% accurate, but it may give you a little bit more of a like a bowling lane idea from it, framework.
And Zillow is another one. I mean,
Mhm.
we're running comps. You guys know that if you're doing a CMA on a property to determine what it's worth. It's the same thing. Go on to Zillow and look at the properties that are for rent that are similar to the property that you're looking at. And you'll be able to see what's out there, and kind of the way we use it, we do it exactly like CMAs. We determine what's our competition. If we're trying to fill that unit, and get it rented out, we know that we need to be the best price unit in the area. And that's a great tool as well. So both of those things to determine what your monthly rents are gonna be on a 12-month lease.
Here's some books, Millionaire Real Estate Investor. We have this upstairs. Psychology of Money is a great book that talks about different scenarios of how you think of money. And again, it goes back to the psychology of when we were raised. Does our family talk about money? Yes or no? And then how does that affect us as we get as adults? I think it's a really good book just to kind of have in your mind. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. Podcast net worth tracker that we do. So if you're not tracking your net worth, I would highly recommend it. We have a template we can share with you. What are our assets? What are our liabilities? What do we owe money on? And then what is our net worth? And even if it is $0 or negative $500,000, at least you know. And then what's your plan to get out of it? And as you buy real estate, it's really awesome to see on a monthly, weekly, daily basis of how much your net worth will increase, even in 2-year time frame, and something that you didn't think that buying real estate could do on that.
And net worth, I mean, I don't know, net worth matters, but what I like about it is it's not really that important to me. What it does tell you is where's your money coming in and where's it going out? So you understand how much you have coming in and how much you have going out. So you can kind of track that trend of, hey, we're on pace adding X amount of money per month, or we're losing X amount of money per month. And where then you can see, okay, where do we need to make tweaks? Where do we need to make changes? And so it's just it's a tracking tool in my mind is all that it is to show you kind of what trend lines you're on.
So we're gonna go through some exercises. So one of the sheets that you received is a budget exercise. We wanted to give this as a resource for y'all, just so you had it, and if you didn't have a budget that you use. The really great thing about this budget exercise worksheet is it gives you ideas of what different items you may have in your personal monthly budget. But the other thing around that is it has columns to say A, B, and C on it. So A is absolutely essential, B, nice and prefer to keep, C, not essential and cut immediately. This is a practice you should do in your personal and business life. So as business and personal, this subscription here, that subscription here adds up, and then you're paying $700 for all these viewing subscriptions that you have no idea, like Netflix, Hulu, all of those fun things. And so how many of this is absolutely essential to have in your life that you couldn't live without? Same thing in your business. B, it's nice and you prefer to keep it. It's a little bit of a luxury. Back in COVID, when we had to do this as a market center, if it was a B category, we had to cut it within a week. No questions asked. And it was a luxury at that point, and we didn't know what was about to happen. C was not essential and cut immediately. We had to cut it that day. And that's all we could do. And so as you go through and you fill out a budget exercise, again, that was one of our things of, we're not perfect at it and we're still working through it. But it's how do we have a clear picture of where we're at and what can we do better around it?
This is a great tool to give your clients too, real estate agents, especially first-time home buyers, to help them determine what their monthly budget is. And so to get them on the right mindset, start thinking about money, that's something that's super helpful.
This cost of repair worksheet.
Yeah.
Wanna go through that?
Yeah, sure. There's a lot in this, so we're not gonna go line by line. And essentially what the next three worksheets are, or pages are, is we have a cost of repair worksheet, we have a buy and hold worksheet, and we have a buy and sell worksheet. So cost of repair, this is for a property that needs repair and needs rehab. And this is one of the best ones that I've seen as far as going through and detailing all of the items on a property that could need repaired. It's great to go in and see, especially if you could walk through with a contractor and look at each item. So you have a very, 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 very good idea of what the rehab is going to cost. To give you an idea of, does it make sense to buy and hold, or does it make sense to buy and sell?
So this would be a great resource just to have as a checklist, especially if you don't know what even to look at if you're doing a flip.
Yeah.
So here is our deal analysis. Do you want to walk through this?
Yeah, I can. So this is a buy and hold. We're gonna, and I don't know, do we have these in there? Did we put these in
No,
this
we don't put
also?
them in
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go over these real quick as well. So buy and sell, you have that in your packet also. These are all spreadsheets that we got printed off, that Peyton got them printed off and formatted and everything. And we have them in a file. So if anybody wants these, we have these in Excel files, actually, that you can go and plug into your computer. It's the same deal. We have the cost for the repair. However, on a buy and hold, you're gonna have other expenses like holding costs from the bank. You're gonna have mortgage, you're gonna have taxes, you're gonna have utilities. It's something that people don't think about. Dumpster, you gotta rent a dumpster if we're ripping a bunch of stuff out of there. So this just details all of those different costs, so you can make sense of, does it make sense to buy and sell? Buy and hold. So this is the deal that we're gonna talk about. This is the same thing. It has all of that included in it and what expenses you need to account for. If you haven't looked at one of these before, it's probably gonna look a little bit overwhelming. It's nice if you can go practice, just like we're doing a CMA or we're filling out a contract for the first time. Go practice on this, go do your personal house and run through all of these numbers. And then you can determine, does this make sense to keep as a rental or not? So this is a rental, this deal analysis that we're gonna be looking at here. And this was a pretty easy one because our rehab costs were very, very minimal. And essentially all that we had to do was paint and put in some carpet in one bedroom. So our rehab costs, you can see, were only $2,500, which is pretty low. This is a kind of northeast Springfield property, 3-bed, 2-bath. That we came across actually on Facebook. I couldn't sleep one night and was on the couch scrolling Facebook and saw a friend of mine shared this post that their friends were selling their house. And I got on there and I saw it. I'm like, man, they're not asking a lot. That seems like a pretty good deal. And this was right at the beginning of our investing journey. So you remember the deal hierarchy slide that we had up there. I was like, man, I could make them a lot more money if I could list that for them. So it's for sale by owner is what they were doing. I failed to say that at first, but they posted it for sale by owner, reached out, messaged them, said, hey, can I come look at this house? There's a chance that I might want to buy it. However, I think you can make a lot more money than what you're asking for. They were originally asking for, I think it was 145 is what they're asking for, but it's 1,750 square feet. And northeast Springfield. And so that's what I looked at. I'm like, okay, well, let's try to help somebody out here. And so we went over there, looked at it. It does not have a garage. It's got the carport, but they converted the garage into more living space to get that extra square footage. So we went over there, looked at it. They had an inspection done already on it. And so we were able to see everything that we were gonna have to do. At some point, I think we'll have to jack the floors up just a little bit because there's some sloping going on, but everything's solid right now and nothing immediate. So we went over there, saw that we did have to do that, said, hey, I think we could probably get 175 for this property on the market right now. That's about $100 a square foot. The condition that it's in is rent condition, but if we went and did a little bit more rehab to it, we may even be able to get a little bit more. And they said, no, we don't want to go through the process of listing it. We already have a house under contract and we want to get rid of this as soon as we possibly can. I said, okay, I don't think that's the right decision for you. However, if that's really what you want, we'll give you 135 for it. We'll pay your closing costs and we'll be done. So we can give you the ease of the deal as long as you know that you will get more money from this, if you go put it on the market and list it. They said the 135 sounds great. That's gonna take a ton of stress off our plate. And we just don't want to chance it. And so obviously we said, okay, and you know, I'm glad we did because it just appraised for $200,000. And this was in 2021, this is whenever we bought that. And so, yeah, the deals are out there and we're not here to tell people what they have to do. We gave them their options and I told them, I went back to them 3 times. I said, guys, you guys are making a mistake here for you and your family if it was me looking at this. And they said, we appreciate your concern, but we want to be done with this now. So we picked up the house for 135. Our down payment on it was $27,000. Our closing costs were around $4,000. That was kind of a guesstimate. And we knew going in, we're gonna have to do about $2,500 worth of repairs and rehab on the inside. So that means you add all that together, our total cash invested is $33,500. Our numbers are probably a little bit, they're pretty darn close to right on this. Our monthly rent, and this is one of the ones that we didn't take into account maintenance or vacancy on. So whenever we were running our numbers, we saw a 19% return and we're like, holy crap, we're kings of the worlds, kings and queens of the worlds, right?
Yeah.
So our monthly rent that we're getting on this property right now is $1,300. Our payment's only $562. We got like a 3.75% interest rate on a commercial loan, which would sure be nice to have back. Because we could make pretty much any property work and cash flow with those interest rates. Our taxes are $79 a month. Our insurance is $96 a month. We put 10% aside. So this is, we've got a lot more conservative with our number running. 10% of the gross monthly income, or gross monthly rent, we put aside for repairs, which is maintenance, CapEx repairs, which are kind of your big ticket items, stuff like that. Then vacancy, we factor in 5% vacancies on all of our long-term rentals. There's still a high need for residential rentals. And so we're not gonna spend a whole lot of time being vacant. So $65 a month is what that equals to. Property management, we have asterisks next to these because we manage all of our doors ourselves currently. However, what we've started doing to be more conservative with this and know that we're hitting doubles instead of just singles is we add in property management fee of 10% on all of our deals, even though we're managing it ourselves, because that allows us to know that once we get to the point that we no longer want to touch these and we want somebody else to manage them for us, we're going to be set and the cash flow is going to make sense to be able to work those numbers out and go ahead and just put it straight into property management. So what we did here, monthly rent is $1,300. We then subtracted all of these costs and expenses below that for a grand total monthly cash flow of $236.11. So then going back to our formula, we know that we're going to cash flow $236.11. We're going to multiply that by 12 because that $236 is our monthly cash flow. So what is our yearly cash flow? We multiply that by 12 and we get $2,833.32. So $2,833.32 is what we're making money in our pocket off of this property. And we're going to divide that by the total cash invested to determine what is our return number. With the property management in place, we are getting an 8.5% return on that, which is okay. I mean, it's stock market kind of return, and the stock market doesn't appreciate like real estate does, and it doesn't have tenant pay down. So ultimately that real return on the whole investment is probably going to be more like 14 to 15%, depending on when we sell it.
And
Because
with property management though, it's less noise.
it is.
So
it
you're
frees
not
us
having
up to
tenants
go.
calling you, they're calling the property manager, something happens, leaks, whatever, they're calling the property manager.
Yeah.
So our personal decision to not do property management doesn't mean that's right for everybody, because there's a time where he's like, let's do it, I'm done, I can't get another call. And so things like that, it just depends on if we said, okay, we don't want the noise now, it would be 8.5 and no
Mhm.
noise, and you get debt pay down, appreciation, all of that. it's still a win.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we take property management out, just our cash flow alone, again, we're looking at this return as only what is the cash flow in our pocket on a monthly basis. Without property management in place, as we're operating currently, we're operating at 13.1% ROI, or cash on cash return. So compared to the stock market, we're almost doubling that return. And then you add in tenant pay down, and you add in the appreciating asset, which is the real estate. And you're probably looking more around a 20 to 25% return when it's all said and done. Unless you keep that past 30 years, if you keep this property and you keep this investment into this real estate, whether you sell this and buy another one and don't have to pay taxes, whatever it might be, that return is gonna ultimately come all the way back around, and at some point becomes essentially infinite.
And when you look at the cash flow of $236, real estate investing doesn't mean, oh, I'm gonna get rich with one property. So when you have your long-term holds, it's very much a long-term play. And when you look at it though, over time, it's gonna benefit. Now, if you can get a variation of long-term, mid-term, short-term, nightly, whatever your niche is, then you have a diverse portfolio where you may have some that the cash flow is increasing at a higher level, and so you're able to capitalize on it more. For our cash flow, we don't take the $236 and put it into our personal account and say, oh, this is now our money. We leave it in there because we're fortunate enough to have jobs that we don't have to do that. And so now we're just using it to build up for our funds for our next one on it too.
Yep.
And then when we talk about the cash flow side of it, a couple of things when we're looking at them is that when we first started, a couple of things. One, cost segregation. We're now finally getting into it because we've heard Blake's story of overwhelming success so many times that we need to do it. So cost segregation is essentially accelerated depreciation. And so if you buy a property, talk with your CPA on what cost segregation is. Not every CPA is going to say, yes, I think you should do this, or have too much of an opinion around it. And so I think it comes from talking with other investors of what has been the benefit of cost segregation, to where you're essentially then minimizing how much you have to pay in taxes. And I don't remember the amount Blake said, but it was enough that I was like, why have we not thought of this? Or why have we not done this before? So definitely look into cost segregation. The thing we are on the search for right now, so if you know anybody, we would love to know, is a tax strategist. So we have a CPA that's been really great, and they do our books, right? They file the taxes, they consult with us on what that looks like on a financial standpoint. But what we're looking for, if you know anybody, is a tax strategist to help us say, how can we be more strategic in what we do as far as real estate investing? We've had the opportunity to talk to a couple of other people at KW that have done larger investments and have a tax strategist, and there's so much more that we're not maximizing in terms of deductions that we are leaving on the table for that too.
It's easy to think of a CPA or your accountant as somebody who's gonna be a tax strategist.
I said, what are the tax hacks we need to know? And I swear he almost fell out of his chair when I asked what the hacks are. Didn't like that.
CPAs and accountants are very risk adverse people by nature, right? They are paid to make sure that we don't get in trouble. And they're awesome at what they do. What we need a little push at for us specifically is knowing and understanding those tax laws, right? And I think it's in Robert Kiyosaki's tax guide. I think it's Tax-Free Wealth is the name of the book. But Robert Kiyosaki's CPA accountant wrote a book called Tax-Free Wealth. And in the opening paragraph, everybody likes to think of the IRS as collecting taxes, and the tax law is here to drain our bank accounts, right? What the tax law is actually set up to do is for utilize those rules and regulations to your benefit. And if you can only do that by understanding those rules and regulations. However, there are a lot of benefits to owning real estate, and the tax code that is written currently is very, very beneficial to own real estate, and gives you a lot of benefits from owning real estate and creating jobs as a business owner which by starting a rental company, you are a business owner. You still have a job, right, in our cash flow quadrant, but you now have a business and the government likes to benefit people who do those two things right there.
And some of those things could be changing from, do you pay your taxes quarterly to yearly, vice versa, all of that. So let's talk about now how we analyze our deals to ensure it's with interest rates, because this was 3.75.
Mhm.
How do we know a transaction or the duplex we bought was a good deal?
We've
With
got to go
interest
through.
rates being what they are
Yeah,
now.
well, and this is the cool part of analyzing deals is it's black and white. It either makes sense or it doesn't. If a deal does not cash flow you any money on a monthly basis and it's costing you money, is that a good investment? Do investments take money out of your pockets? No, right? So it's very, very
But
black and white.
transparency, we do have one property that we're negatively cash flowing right now whenever the lease renews. So that way
Yeah.
we can make it because of the appreciation. So I think it also depends on the type of property. And if there's a lease in place, when will that lease end? And then how much more could you increase it? So I think it's not a very black and white at the very beginning.
Mhm.
It's also a long game, but a short game. Are we okay with losing $25 a month negatively until 6 months, and then we can go and increase the rent?
Yeah, I think so. And then you're talking about how much is your risk tolerance there? Because we're losing $25 a month for 4 months,
Yeah.
right? Now $25 a month isn't gonna make or break. It's one less trip to Chick-fil-A a week, but it's not gonna make or break anything, right? So the flip side of that is we bought a property that for $140,000 that appraised at $190,000. That needs some work and needs some stuff like that, but it's understanding the numbers, I guess, is more so where it's at, is if we can understand where the numbers are at now and what they could be. With higher interest rates, you're probably gonna have to take some chances on some stuff and know that you're gonna be able to up rents and do that. But again, it's all black and white. It's about what do the numbers say and what are we doing there? And where are we going in the future? So as far as higher interest rates, kind of like we were talking about, low inventory, high interest rates, that kind of stuff. Just like Gary Keller talked about with lead generation and selling real estate, we've got to increase the number of people that we talk to if we're going out to find deals. There's still deals out there. There is still deals going on. There will always be deals going on. If there are less deals happening, if there are less transactions happening, that's fine. We just have to increase the number of people that we talk to on a daily basis or a weekly basis about what deals are out there so we can go find those deals. And ultimately, that's the name of the game, right? If there were 16,000 real estate transactions that happened last year, and this year they're talking about a 30% decrease? I can't remember what it was, the 30% decrease in total sales. That's fine. There's gonna be 14,000 transactions that happen this year. In order for us to be successful this year, we need 5 of the 14,000. It's harder to get those 5, but all we have to do that we know is go network with more real estate agents. If you're not it doesn't matter if you are a real estate agent or not. This is something that's different from the investing side that most realtors aren't gonna say. You as a non-licensed person to go talk to other real estate agents, that's what you have to do. You have to have, same thing with us as licensed real estate agents. We've got to go talk to more real estate agents, or we've got to go talk directly to the source of sellers. And which one is gonna be the most efficient, beneficial option. We've just got to increase the number of people we're talking to.
So a lot of the times when I'm talking to other agents, it's, hey, we are looking for this kind of property. Do you have something available? Do you know of anything that's coming available? And I'll say, is there something you're wanting to offload because you're looking for another opportunity? And that's where a lot of our deals or properties have come from, is from other agents. Just from having that. And normally the response is, well, I do have this one, if I could make it work. I said, awesome, great. That's all I need is an opportunity. Because every agent, no matter how long they've been in the business, probably knows somebody that has an investment property that they're looking to sell. I remember when Tyrus Townsend was in the business for 5 months and he stood up in bold and said, oh yeah, I have this package of like 48 properties. And we're all like, who are you? Hi, Tyrus, nice to meet you. How do we find out about that?
Tyrus gained a lot of friends.
He did gain a lot of friends that day, being new in a new environment too. So our biggest source of finding homes is through other agents and other agents looking to off-sell. I mean, we all get things in the mail from people looking for properties. It's the same way. People are always trying to go out, driving for dollars, bigger pockets. If you drive by a home that looks a little run down, what is that app that I call Range Rover that's not called Range Rover?
Landglide.
Landglide. So there's an app called Landglide where it'll essentially tell you like who owns what property as you're driving by it. And so that's a great way to see it and then say, okay, how do I get in contact, or just go up and knock on their door and say, hey, are you looking to sell? You can tell on Landglide where their mailing address is, so you know if it's local or not, but that's been beneficial to go through. But it really is, how many people can I talk to, real estate or not? And even in a different profession or other industry, or even if you're talking to people that aren't real estate agents, one, if you're in real estate, normally real estate's gonna get brought up. And if you say, I'm looking to start investing, or I'm gonna continue my investment, they may know people. Or just through conversations, there's so many people that aren't real estate agents that are active investors in Springfield that have properties we just don't know about. So you'll never know who you come across with that. And that's been our biggest thing. We're not big mailer people. We're not big, like, I don't know what the other tactics,
Cold
driving for
calling.
dollars. We don't drive for dollars. We don't cold call. We don't do any of that. Ours is really just from conversations with as many people as possible on that.
Yeah.
When we're talking about some of our scalability, the thing we come across is how do we, this is the conversation, how do we maximize our money? And so I think for you, Steve, if you're trying to maximize your dollars, I think hard money lenders would be a good, we have like 3 or 4 right here in this office that would be good options for that. That's where I think Blake, Dan, Zach, I don't know who else, and multiple people are looking to do hard money lending. We've also talked about, in terms of how do we maximize our dollars, is do we offload some of our properties to go and upscale? Because we'd rather have one larger property that we don't have to drive all over for too. That's been our biggest thing. And then looking back, if I would have done it all over again when we bought our first one, Michael Rodhouse with 417 Reiki has this key system where essentially has 40 different slots of like one master key for all these 40 different slots, and it can have a different lock for every one. I wish we would have created one master key for all of our properties, and every property would have fallen on that, so we don't carry a bag of keys around. Nothing crazier carrying that bag of keys, rummaging through and saying, okay, which property switch? So that's something we want to look at switching over, is how do we get one for all of them, so we don't have to be the, the janitor of them, jingling all the keys too. That's been a big one.
Do you have anything specific when you talk about scalability that you have in mind?
I guess my next steps, I really I want to get back into buying and holding, just because I've been doing so many flips lately, and I love it. But it's raised a good amount of capital to really jump back into buy and hold again.
Yeah.
I will likely start soon, I just, it's just going about it the best way, I guess, at this point. I actually lend out to people. So
cool.
I'm kind of on the other spectrum of that, and I love that too.
Yeah.
That's just, that's a new one for me, but I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So no, I guess it's just, I like what you're saying about finding the right deal there, and I just gotta start focusing more on that.
Yeah, it's shifting
I know
the
they're
focus
out there.
from flipping it and making the money to then finding it, but it has to be a really specific one. And that's really hard right now, is to find one that can make the numbers work, especially as interest rates.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so many, we were talking about that last night, you're gonna sort through 20 no's in order to get one yes versus, a couple of years ago, it could have been you sort through 2 and then you're like, oh, how do I get them all because of interest rates? And so that I think is there's a lot more investors getting back into buying more, and it's a big struggle. I feel like that's the common thing we're hearing with interest rates, is making those numbers work because of that big variable.
You pay cash for your hold or for your flips? What's keeping those properties from, are they not qualifying as holds?
No, they
Or are you
will.
just wanting to generate the capital?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I
Yeah,
just
sure.
got addicted to making the money.
Makes sense.
See, it's a chill pill, learning when to take the chill pill of that aspect. I mean, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, it's addicting.
Yeah, it is.
I almost feel like a criminal going to the bank sometimes. but I love it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how sustainable that is, and I like having the actual asset as well.
And it's a type of risk too, like, because you're really good at it though, for some, like, doing a flip, it could go wrong because they just don't know how to analyze all the numbers
Yeah,
properly,
yeah.
so it sounds like you're really dialed in on that. You about to say something? I'm sorry.
It's hard to, in a real estate market that we're still in, it's not 2021 anymore. But the real estate market that we're in, that's appreciating so quickly, and it still is. As it here anyway, maybe not for the nation, but here, our real estate market is still appreciating very quickly. It's hard to see those dollar signs and what you can put in your pocket now and say no to it. It's very, very hard to do there. So, I get it, but I guess it depends on your goals, and there's not a right or wrong. If we're generating capital, let's go generate capital, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just like there's nothing wrong with keeping those $200 monthly hello cash flows and putting the $230 in your pocket. There's not a right or wrong either way, because it's a tool. So that's interesting. With being able to do 2 every 6 weeks, that's a pretty high scale. So I'm interested that one of your questions was how to find more deals, because
Well, I could find
most real
those.
estate agents
Mhm.
don't find flips, 2
Yeah.
flips every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I do well at that. It's just, it's again penciling those numbers in now to where, where I can cash flow, even if it's a lower amount.
Yeah.
And tell me if I'm not asking you to give away all your secrets here, but when we talk about finding deals and locating those deals, again, in a low inventory market, you're not a licensed agent, correct?
Mhm.
And you're finding 2 every 6 weeks. That's insane.
I send out a lot of offers, and I will send out a ridiculous offer, and once in a while, somebody will bite on it.
Yeah.
I do a lot of that. I love driving around
Mhm.
looking for vacant houses or
Yeah.
houses that aren't maintained, and I approach it that way as well. And then my agent brings me a lot of stuff too that's off
Yeah.
market, and I've been successful there. So.
Yeah.
That's great.
Cool.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's one space that we are just now getting into, is the flip side of it. That's one thing that, because it's like,
Trying
okay,
to.
well, yeah, we're in the middle of our second.
We keep holding them.
Yeah, we keep holding them, yeah. That's my biggest thing, is like, I don't ever want to let go of them, but then obviously you can generate more cash that way. So it's that balance of it. But that's the space of like, it is that balance of, because you want to build that extra capital to go then buy and hold, but then if you're building it, and you can buy a bigger property, if, and so I think that's always the struggle. And I think it's a good struggle and thought. It's just more of like, what works best for your strategy
Yeah.
and how that works.
Cool. I want to switch gears a little bit. Who in here does not own an investment property? What questions do you guys have? We went into some that's some high level stuff that he's doing. What are the questions that you guys have as far as getting started out and then thought processes there? Do you want to own property? Because there's not a right or wrong answer there. You don't have to say yes. You can hurt our feelings if you want to.
I don't think I really thought about it in
Okay.
that aspect until this class. Like,
Okay.
now it makes me want to.
Okay, what's been your biggest takeaway from today?
I think, what you guys said about why you do it and for that long term to be able to have opportunities
Mhm.
and also your loved ones and everything. I'm in a similar situation where like my mom lives in Florida with my sister.
Okay.
And I just think it would be great if I could somehow long-term take care of her.
Mm.
That's, I don't know, I've been telling her that for years and she's still
Okay.
holding out hope.
Okay, got it, cool.
I would love to do that.
Cool.
Since I live there, I would love the opportunities to be able to go there as often as I can.
Okay, dip your toes in the water more often, maybe.
Mhm,
Cool.
mhm.
Okay, Sarah, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I've wanted to for a little while now. I've talked to Red about it some, but I think just like you guys talked about with the interest rates, it's scary to me, because I mean, I do have a lot of equity in my house. Thankfully, I bought it back in 2020
Yeah.
before things got crazy. And so like hearing you guys talking about, refinancing and like using that cash flow, I guess,
Yeah,
towards something else, because I thought about selling my house and getting something and using that as a rental and getting something else.
Mhm.
But it doesn't make sense when I think about selling and buying something smaller or
Mm,
less. I
okay,
don't know.
got it.
Anyways,
You don't wanna live in an RV?
no, not really.
Seemed like
My
everybody
3-year-old
wants
probably would not like
That would be a
that.
lot. Got it. Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
you have a lot of equity built up, and it's hard to go from your 2.75, 3.5% interest rate, whatever it is. you got
Yeah,
there.
3.5, yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
almost
that was right
double,
before
you
they really
know.
tanked.
Yeah, so I don't know, I mean, this was helpful, I didn't even know, Rhett just told me I should come to this class, I didn't even know what it was gonna be about, but
Okay,
this was, helpful, and I mean, I loved hearing your guys's,
cool.
story and everything, so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, good.
So do you wanna do this now?
I
Or
mean,
less?
I do, I still do for sure, it's just
Yeah.
figuring out, I think you also said something about it's scary whenever you're not like, you don't have clarity on everything or
Mhm.
answers about everything, and so like actually just taking the plunge, Rachel was talking about for 2 years, it took her to make the decision, so,
Well, you can see the numbers on paper and still not know that that's actually,
yeah.
until it's tangible, it's hard to believe, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like Santa Claus, a little bit, I guess. Yeah. Okay, what's your right side of the room? What's been your biggest takeaways? What's your biggest ahas? Today, my right, your left. Wake up.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah,
So just kind of, I mean, it's all good.
yep. What's your biggest, what's the thing that sticks out of everything? Because it is a lot, it's a ton.
Like, okay, so doing an Airbnb versus, so short-term rental versus long-term rental.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on different? I know you chose long-term rental.
Mhm.
I guess I don't know, I mean, I know the difference, but what are your thoughts on the difference? Why did you choose long-term versus short-term?
For us, it's easier. It makes more sense. We understand long-term. We got burnt by short-term by Airbnbs in Stone County telling us that we can't do it. Now we are, I mean, here's the thing, we learned a great lesson. We're gonna lose $1,000 on that deal. And which in my mind, I'm like jumping up and down, hallelujah, kind of thing for a great lesson. We had to do an owner finance. We had to carry his down payment essentially. And so we're having to kind of restructure it a little bit, but we still got burnt, bad taste in my mouth. Don't understand it. The long-term deals are there if you're looking for them. And you put the effort in to go find them. They're there and it's less risk involved. You think of regulations, you think of all that stuff. There's no regulations, essentially, there's no regulations to rent a property out for 12 months on a 12-month lease. You don't have a whole lot of risk. With a short-term rental and the uncertainty, they just started during COVID. COVID was a very uncertain time. All these counties are starting to put a limit on how many Airbnbs there can be or determine what kind of properties qualify for an Airbnb. I don't like the risk of it, and I'm typically a risk taker. But I don't like the risk there. I would rather have the guaranteed, we know that we're gonna do this. Now, the flip side of that is we do the furnished short-term rentals and most counties, the minimum for it to be not considered a nightly rental is 30 days at a time. You can rent any property out for 30 days at a time and it'd be considered a long-term rental. So what we have been doing is we buy these properties based off of, and our mindset going forward as well, we buy the properties based off of a 12-month lease. We know that the properties are gonna perform where we need them to perform, and that is like the most conservative thing that we can do. But then we have a duplex right over here off of Fremont where the bear was last night. Great spot for a short-term furnished rental. And so we're gonna go in that duplex. We've got a long-term tenant on the right side, the left side, we're gonna go in and furnish it and do as a more of a short-term rental because we're able to generate more cash on that side, but we also have the safety net of having a tenant in there as well. So that's my thought on it. It's less risky. We know it. We have access to the deals that make sense. We're looking for base hits. We're looking for, 20 properties versus 4. Because the Airbnbs take more. You have more money that the Airbnb companies take. You have to furnish it nicer. You have to do all that stuff. As you saw at the walkthrough the other day, design is not my thing. Picking out colors is not my thing. All of that stuff. So I like black, white, keep it simple, and put base hits together versus going after the big home runs every time. Does that make sense? I feel like I rambled.
Absolutely, no, it's really good.
Okay, cool. What else do you guys have? My right, your left.
Start now, stop waiting.
Okay. Cool.
There's only how many days left?
Okay. Peyton, Jayla? What's your thoughts?
It's interesting, but I need to get a house for myself first and not an apartment.
Okay, so you gotta buy something.
Gotta buy something
We gotta
first.
start. What do you think, Jay?
It's interesting because my parents are going through their first one right now.
No.
So kind of hearing a little bit more about how the process actually works.
It's different than on
Yeah.
paper, right? Like we talked about. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I thought it was interesting what Rachel said about she wished someone told her in college to buy a duplex.
Mhm.
I guess just starting young. I mean, I'm 17, I could start, not now, but like sooner on if I kind of can figure it out a little bit more as time goes on.
Mhm. Yeah. The earlier you get started, the
I bought my
earlier you
first
can.
house at 17.
You did? Wow, that's incredible. That's very cool.
You can buy it. I had to work my butt off.
Very cool. Yeah, the earlier you start, the earlier you can start dipping your toes in the ocean.
Sorry, I had to pay y'all. Landon's on vacation. How dare he take a vacation day? Megan was calling my phone and I didn't know. And they're like, hello.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, what other thoughts? What other ahas, ideas?
Is there anything we didn't answer for you that you wish you would have known?
Can you touch on commercial lending real quick? Just kind of what that looks like? Are you packaging things or is that for each individual property?
We have not had to package anything. We haven't bought really any package deals. Again, we're not sexy when it comes to the investing side. We buy properties one at a time and it is base hit after base hit. That's all that it is. So, we haven't had to package anything. We haven't had to do anything like that. Multiple appraisals, nothing there. So I don't know if you have a specific question within that or not.
Just how the commercial lending differs from your typical residential.
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They don't care. Not that they don't care.
There's
at all
less
about the
information
credit score.
they need.
Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna go barking up your family tree just to give you a home loan. It's very, very focused on the deal. We fill out a personal financial statement. We do all of our stuff with Great Southern Bank and we go fill out one personal financial statement a year, so they have it updated on a yearly basis. We've got the vast majority of our accounts over there, so we have it all in one place. We like simple. Where we're at now, we haven't had to go find other banks. It's not like we're maxed out at Great Southern and they're saying we're not giving you anything else, so we're not even close to that.
Rates are higher, obviously, than residential loans
Yeah,
right now. And
Right now
then,
they are.
It's on a 5-year.
We have been doing 5-1s and I can't remember if we did a 3-1 or not, the last
I
deal.
think we did one on the 3-1, yeah.
I think our last one was a 3-1 and we're betting on rates being lower. We might get burnt on that. We'll see.
And explain what a 5-1 is.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you brought that up. Do you worry at the end of that 5-1,
Mhm.
you know, if, I hope rates don't keep going up, but that reality's there, that if they don't trickle back down, how that's going to affect what you're having to charge for rent right now, and are you gonna be able to get that?
I think that's always a thought or a worry.
Hmm.
And I guess my perspective is, are we really gonna have that property in 5 years?
Yeah,
That's the other side of it
that's where
too.
I'm at,
I mean, there's some that we want to hold on for a long time, but then if the other right deal came up in the next 2 years and we wanted to sell them all in 1031 into something bigger, I think that's kind of my thought process in it of like, normally the average life expectancy of someone staying in a house, not life expectancy, but when you buy a house just for residential, you're in there 7 years. And that's their personal home. And so I'm thinking an investment, there's always hopefully going to be upgrading our portfolio.
I think that, for the same thing for me, like you just said, that all depends on where you buy it at. And my thing is I want to be 100% certain that, you know, rates go up to 10, let's say at the end of that 5-year period. From where we are now, for rates to go up to 10, we're going to see a decrease in property value, right? And probably decently significant. So in my mind, it's all about where you buy the property at, meaning purchase price, and knowing that we can sell that property and break even, get our investment back out of it, and we're not going to risk that. So if we were going to get technical and really talk numbers, the worst property value decrease was in 2008, at least in the modern times, right? We're not talking about the Great Depression. And they decreased by about 20 to 25% on I think 25% is the high end, probably. You might know better than me, but if we can buy our deals 20% below market value, I feel comfortable there because I know our investment is safe and we're going to get our money back out of it if we had to sell it in a really, really bad time. So I think that's the way that I look at it, is at the end of 5 years, more than likely property values are going to increase and appreciate. Rent amounts are going to increase with that as well. And we're betting on the average real estate market, which appreciates at 5% a year. So sure, is it a thought in 5 years if our 5/1 ARM comes up and now all of a sudden interest rates are at 12? Yeah, absolutely. At that point in time, you know, if the real estate market decreases by 20%, we're safe because that's where we bought it at. So it's all about where you buy it at in my mind.
Because it's an ARM, do you build in your analysis that plus minus range of where the interest rate goes?
No, we haven't. Does everybody know what an ARM is? Everybody know what we're talking about when we say 5/1 ARM versus fixed financing? Okay, so fixed financing is your normal 30-year home loan, right? It's your interest rate is fixed for 30 years. It's never going to change unless you refinance into a different loan. When we talk about ARMs, and this is how commercial loans are structured, is if they are 1/1 ARMs, there's 3/1 ARMs, 5/1 ARMs, 7/1 ARMs. I think some people have done 10/1 ARMs, which would have been awesome 2 years ago. What that means is if we're talking about a 5/1 ARM, we're going to have that interest rate for 5 years. It's amortized over 25 to 30 years and broken up into payments based on that. However, after those 5 years, we go back to renegotiate on interest rate. And so it's safe for the bank to know that they're always going to be making money. It's depending on how you look at it. For us, you don't have to refinance at the end of that 5 years. So if interest rates go down, it's actually great for us. However, that's what we're talking about when we talk about 5/1 ARM. So 5 years from now, if we bought a property today and we did a 5/1 ARM for the financing in 5 years, we're going to have a different interest rate for sure, whether it's lower or higher. So that's why we talk about the risk of it. If interest rates, we get a 6% interest rate today, and we're like, oh, this feels high compared to our 4% interest rate we got 2 years ago. 5 years, if it's 12%, we're paying 12% interest on that. So that's tough. What was the question that you asked?
Oh, I just asked if you built in that variation
That's
in
right.
your analysis, yeah. So-
No. Not really. We typically, we know what our interest rate is going to be when we're putting a contract on it. We typically put 0.25% higher on our payment to make sure that we're being conservative with it. 0.25% over 5 years doesn't really mean much though. So to answer your question in short, no, we don't. That's smart.
I'm very risk averse, so I'm ultra conservative on my numbers, but I also build in buffers for everything. So
Sure.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, makes perfect sense. What other questions? Anybody?
Do you buy anywhere in town or what is your buy books look like?
At first, yes. we would. It was all about cash flow. Do the numbers make sense? Let's just go.
And we were at a
Kind of
different
thing.
spot, so if we could find one, the first one we found is on the corner of Kansas and Chestnut Expressway, and we still have that one, but I think it's also different levels of, if I'm just going to find one, I'm gonna learn so much no matter where it's located at.
And part of that is the numbers of how it operates. So we know at Kansas and Chestnut, that's gotta operate really, really well compared to East Sunshine, right? And so those numbers have to be a lot better. So, you know, if there's a deal that cash flows at 80% ROI, yeah, we'll probably look at it because we know that we're gonna be able to sell it for more than we bought it for. So it really just depends on the cash flow numbers and our cash on cash return on it. Our preference, however, is as we continue to buy more is really, really shrinking, I would say, into those better areas, and we're southwest, south and east Springfield is really where we're wanting to be, like every other investor in the area.
We do have one in Bolivar, and so that is it's the duplex for my parents, so,
That's a good lesson as well.
what was that lesson?
Though it was right in between all three of us, and so we figured that everybody could take turns.
Yeah,
responding to
yeah.
calls.
Yeah, and it's all us, but it's okay. It's, there's a good intent behind it. So yeah, so we have that one in Bolivar, but luckily though, that hasn't been like a problem child, like we call some of our other properties. So it's been less noise within it. I don't know if we would go too much farther out. I think we have started to shrink just because one, we're not buying packages or like larger properties where it's one spot. We're having 22 different doors or wherever we're driving all over to go to those different locations. So we're trying to minimize the time spent going all of them. But I think it just depends, because there's some people that they do well, especially in the outer lying areas, and that's their bread and butter, and that's awesome. And everybody has just such a different strategy. But again, I think it's, if you can go out and find one, you'll learn so much no matter where it's at. And then you can decide, did I like this? Did I not? And then adjust from there too. Yeah. Big.
I agree.
Yeah, we thought it was gonna be really fun.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Any other questions? I think if you haven't bought a property yet, the first thing is, do I have the capital? And if not, what do I need to do in order to get the capital? One of the things I did was after I refinanced, I put the money in a money market account, so it had a higher interest I could earn on it. And then every month I just did a transfer to it. And so it was the way of building that up for whenever I was ready, I had that as my investing side of it. Maybe a bank that you use could give you a higher interest rate as well, but the money market was the same way for me. I was able to earn more interest. But then I just started talking to people. And like I said, if you find a property and you know the numbers make sense, or if you have questions, we're happy to answer if it makes sense for you. But there's always going to be people out there with money. You'll always find it. You'll be amazed how many people actually have money and then will do lending on it. And so just find the property and say, okay, what do I need to do to get involved in this on it? So don't let that discourage you. Don't let the amount of investors discourage you. Don't let whatever you hear from anywhere else. It's just, who can I talk to? Because you'll never know when you'll find the right person that says, oh yeah, I'm looking to sell this, or I know this person too. And so it kind of takes the scariness out of it. And I think the really cool thing about KW specifically is whenever I went under contract, I was so nervous, and I talked to 25 million people here and just always said something, and they always gave me some sort of advice and kind of helped calm me. So that was the way it just, like, even when Shannon went under contract, she's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'm like, it's good. And she had 5 people helping her through it. So just remove the scariness out of it. And just as long as you have the money, and you know, if you bought this property and you had to kind of crap hits the fan and you have to pay $5,000 extra on something, are you okay with that? Yes or no? And if you are, then it's worth it. It's worth a try. It's worth a try. Yeah. So I think that was it, right?
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
that we have any more slides
Cool.
after that.
Well, if you guys have any other questions, please let us know. But thanks for spending 2 hours with us. We were like, wow, are we gonna be able to do this? Yeah,
That's the end of it.
yeah, it's the end.
Yep.
The end.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you. Here's our cell phone numbers. Oh, please let
This
us
is
know.
our first time doing this, so
And thanks to everybody online.
Being
Look, we had 1, 2,
guinea
3
pigs.
people stay with us the whole time online.
that's awesome.
Oh. Okay.
2 of them are Wim Oaks.
Well, no, I.
He liked it so much, he opened 2 computers to watch.